Welcome to the Codecast podcast. Real-world insights for your daily medical coding and billing processes. And now, here's your host, Terry Fletcher.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Codecast podcast today. My name is Terry Fletcher. So today I'm going to talk to you about something that's been coming up quite a bit, not just in audits, but in education I've been doing for providers and payers. And it may not be something that you think about every day, but it is something that you have to consider when practices and maybe even your practice is now venturing off into things like lifestyle medicine, weight loss clinics, and prescribing drugs that are not FDA approved or are off-label. So the first thing you have to look at, not just for non-covered services, but remember, and I talked about this in a couple of podcasts ago, that before we get into coding, we talk about medical necessity. Medical necessity is defined, and again, this is in the Social Security statute. And the statute I'm going to give you, it's Title XVIII of the Social Security Act, 1862 A1A, and it prohibits Medicare coverage for services which are not deemed medically necessary, or they call it reasonable and necessary. And so when we get into these things, Medicare says what is defined as reasonable and necessary are for the diagnosis or treatment of an illness or injury or to improve the functioning of a malformed body member that are not excluded under another provision of the Medicare program. So Medicare covers services it views as medically necessary to diagnose and or to treat other health conditions, or it says to treat health conditions, sorry. If those conditions produce debilitating symptoms or side effects, it may also be considered medically necessary to treat those as well, but then you do bring some things into question. So certain things must meet qualifications. So you have to meet certain qualifications to be considered medically necessary and of those items and service. So here are the qualifications. First of all, consistent with symptoms and or diagnosis of illness or injury under treatment. Here's one that I want you to pay close attention to. Necessary and consistent with generally accepted professional medical standards, not experimental or investigational, not furnished primarily for the convenience of the patient, attending physician or other physician or supplier, and furnished at most appropriate level that can be provided safely and effectively to the patient. Services also have to meet criteria provided, as everyone knows, in our NCDs, National Coverage Determinations, in our our LCDs, Local Coverage Determinations as well. And those determinations are decided by CMS and Medicare contractors to determine if Medicare will pay for a specific line item or service, or if additional rules may apply for your state to make payment. And not every procedure code, not everything has an NCD or LCD policy attached to it. So if there is not a clear coverage policy available, then providers need to focus on what constitute as, again, I'm air quoting, medical necessity. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm seeing a lot of evaluation and management, E&M services, being reported for weight loss clinics when you're evaluating patients for obesity, for experimental, investigational, or non-FDA off-label drugs. You can't do that. That's considered not medically necessary. And I've already seen 2 payers claw back money on this. I've seen attorneys jump all over this now, prosecuting attorneys saying, oh, we now have a niche we can go after and claw back money. Not only that, you can be getting into a lot of trouble, and then things are going to be forced on the patient for out of pocket. Those have to be cash practice prices with disclaimers to the patient that their payer, especially the government, considers those things not accepted professional medical standards. And now with the new rules for 2026, as we know, that anything that, again, those weight loss drugs, they call them the fat shots, that are currently covered, they are taking almost 80% of those out of coverage policies and now saying you can't have it. So I know one of them, for example, is Ozempic. You can't, that's not considered covered. And so those things, and I'm not picking on a particular company or a particular drug. That's just a fact. I mean, you go look it up on the formulary, it's not there. And it's even specific saying that it's not considered covered. So for those of you that are trying to bill for services and saying that, and that is one condition that is not considered right now a chronic condition, and it should be, in my opinion, it should be, but it isn't, and I'm here just to, give you the problems with trying to bill for that, you can find yourself with a false claim. So, non-covered services, statutorily excluded services, you have to let the patient know with an ABN if it's statutorily excluded, and you would use a GY modifier, and if it is non-covered, it would be an ABN with a GA modifier, so that patients know that they're going to have an out-of-pocket, and it has to be a cash pay price. So statutorily excluded, for example. So these are items that are excluded by statute and not recognized as part of the covered Medicare benefit. So a voluntary ABN may be given to the patient, indicating that, again, GY modifier, that this is statutorily excluded. And does that voluntary ABN means that, the patient doesn't have to sign it, but then you have to have some kind of financial policy with them, financial agreement that they're going to have to pay for it. Under the non-covered services, where you use a GA modifier, that's a mandatory advanced beneficiary notice, or ABN, that is required because they just don't meet policy criteria. It could be frequency guidelines, or it could just mean that for today it's not medically necessary. So statutorily excluded would be things like dental items, preparation of mouth for dentures, or removal of diseased teeth in a jaw, or x-rays taken in connection with care for teeth. Now, exclusions to that could be if there is an x-ray taken for a fractured jaw or a facial bone. But if it's just an x-ray to survey treatment of a teeth, so periodontal services, that's not covered. So those kinds of things are, you have to know the statutory rules on that. Foot care, there are a lot of things that are generally excluded from coverage. Treatments of flat foot or routine foot care, as removal of corns or calluses or trimming, cutting, clipping, other really hygienic or preventative maintenance cares. Now, if it's a patient who has, debilitating or contributory diabetic neuropathy with that, then you've got some other issues there. Any kind of cosmetic surgery. I'm auditing a cosmetic surgeon right now, and any procedure directed at improving the beneficiary's appearance is considered cosmetic surgery, and that is not statutorily covered by Medicare and Medicaid. Now, exceptions for that, it could be a repair of an accidental injury for a malformed body member. That's different. Burn treatment is different. Surgery to perform a repair of face following a serious automobile accident, as long as it is because let's say that they were having trouble breathing because it broke their nose or something, that's different. But if it's cosmetic, you're going to run into trouble. Hearing aids. And these are things I wish they did cover. I think it's crazy that they cover some things, but not this. For the examination for the purpose of prescribing, fitting, or changing hearing aids, that's excluded from coverage. So, you might have an exception that could be covered. Certain devices that produce perception of sound by replacing function in the middle ear or auditory nerve possibly could be covered. But again, hearing aids are not considered, they're statutorily covered. Custodial care, and this is, you might have a situation where custodial care and occupational therapy kind of have a crossover a little bit. Examples of furnished in the patient's home, for example, walking, getting in and out of bed, bathing, dressing, feeding, using the bathroom, special diet. If it can be self-administered, then that's not OT. If it's something that requires the continuing attention of a trained medical or paramedical professional, now you've got the occupational therapy, exception. But it has to be in conjunction with skilled care, somebody who's maybe, the patient talked to their provider and they elected hospice care only. Maybe that might not be, appropriate for them. So they do have OT. Any kind of personal comfort items. I saw somebody trying to bill for radio or television or, beauty services. Yes, we think that there should be, hygienic and personal grooming care that should be covered. And I know some services under Medicare Advantage plans, they do cover some of those things, but they are not covered statutorily on Part B services. Routine checkups, we do have some screening services, but remember, you cannot charge an E&M with routine physical exams that are considered to be preventative unless there is a significant separate problem found that you have to address during that preventative service. So, and I see so many practices saying, well, every single time I'm just refilling their medications. No, that's part of that. But the biggest reason I just wanted to bring this up is I'm just getting so many weight loss clinics. That's the biggest thing, that are, providing services, trying to bill for E&M just to talk about weight loss. And, for those of you that have ever met me, I know I've been around a long time. Yes, I'm a plus size person. I've actually lost quite a bit of weight in the last 2 years, almost 75, 80 pounds. So, but I'm, still considered a plus size person. I'm never going to be skinny mini. And that's an important service to have a nutritionist or have a provider that's talking you through a healthier lifestyle, because as we get older, we know things go south pretty quickly, especially with weight on you. Unfortunately, some of these medications, and it's not for me. I would never do that. Needles scare the crap out of me. But for those practices that are getting into the weight loss clinics and trying to make this a moneymaker, especially when they see how much those drugs cost in the U.S. versus getting them, outside the country, and hopefully the HHS is going to change that with our new Secretary Kennedy. But it's a problem if you're trying to bill for covered services like E&M services under Part B Medicare, under Medicaid, or under commercial plans, when commercial also, they follow these, experimental or investigational rules, and it's not considered medically necessary, and you could see a clawback. So please just be aware of that. Make sure you've seen the new transmittal that came out on what they're taking away for 2026 on weight loss drugs. I know my good friend Stephanie Allard has something on her website, a new article about that at stephanieallard.com. So look at that. But it's crazy. I do some training and I do auditing in this space, but I don't like it because they continually handcuff you on what you can do. And I just don't want you to get in trouble. Now, in saying that, I was having a funny discussion with somebody the other day. And they're just like, hey, Terry, can you put on your podcast at the end when you do a personal tidbit, what foods do you hate? I'm like, sure, why not? Now, I hope for anyone out there that I'm not going to get a bunch of haters on this. I hate olives. They taste like dirt to me. I don't care if they're green, if they're black. I don't care. They're gross. It's funny because I have a brother, my younger brother, Ray. He hates them too. But my other younger brother, older than Ray, but younger than me, Wade, he loves olives, and so does my sister, but I'm the oldest and I hate olives. So there's two of us that like them, two of us that don't. Also, I don't see the point of Triscuits. I don't see the point. Unless you have a flavor for wicker furniture, I don't see the point with Triscuit. And on what planet does anyone think that Brussels sprouts should exist? Gross. Yeah, move on. So yeah, those are my worst things that I don't like. Maybe next week I'll tell you some of my favorite things. Most of you know one of my favorite things is eggs. I don't know. I eat eggs every day. I don't care how you cook them. I love them. So it's just funny because that was a kind of an interesting conversation when we were talking about that. And somebody said, hey, put that on your podcast. I'm like, yeah, now I'm going to get DMs of people saying, what? You haven't had Brussels sprouts cooked the way I have. Trust me, I've had them every way. They're gross. But you know what? More power to you if you like them. What actually I haven't had in a while that I probably should make is summer squash. And we're getting up on summertime. We're now in June. Yay, finally. But maybe I'll search that out and make some of that. So, because I'm not big on zucchini, but summer squash, those are the ones that are light green that kind of look like a weird looking flower or an ice plant. If you haven't tried it, try it. It's not something that's in the mainstream, but they're pretty good. They actually taste like the heart of an artichoke, not the marinated ones, yuck, but the ones that are, you actually grill them or steam them or whatever, and there's something you're trying to fight for. There's not much of it, but it's pretty good. All right, everyone. Hopefully you're enjoying your start to summer, your baseball season or whatever you're watching, if you watch that kind of sport or whatever, and you are having a mild summer to start. So make it a great rest of your week, make it a great day, and thank you for listening to the Codecast podcast.
For more information on medical coding, billing, auditing, and compliance, including how to hire Terry, follow Terry on Twitter at TerryCoder1 or visit her website at www.terryfletcher.net. Podcast producer Joe Kuzma. Music producer Dassassin Music.